Okay, thank you for the introduction. So during this talk, I will speak mainly about data platform. And before to go and jump into details, I want to share with you why it motivates me to share with you this. And for that, I want to give you a little bit of background. It's been several weeks, several months, to be honest with you, that I have in my backlog of things to do, to put in a workplace a message about what I have been done so far for the past year in DBS. I'm sorry, I did not have the time to put it. Each time I'm procrastinating, but the Technozaure arrived and it gave me this opportunity to share with you what I'm doing at a university, in DBS. So my main role in DBS is to be the evangelist. I don't really like this word, but the idea is to advocate, to train, and to listen to users that are actually using the DBS data platform called ADA. And to do that, what I have done for the past year, now it's a we because I have a team, is we created a university within DBS. So for the past year, we have trained more than 1,000 people. I already gave a talk to more than 500 people in one shot. We are creating e-learnings. We have several trainings, workshops, and so on about this DBS data platform called ADA. So if you have time at the end, I will show you the e-learning and I will show you a little bit of the video. Like this, you'll understand through real use case what's a real data platform within a company. So to do that, what I will, the agenda for the day will be, I'll start by first explaining you why we needed the data platform. So as Simon Sinek explained in his book, Always Start With Why, I want to start by make sure that everyone understands the purpose of it. Because we don't, for example, for me, 1 year ago, before I joined DBS, it was something that was completely obscure to me. I wasn't aware about what's a data platform, what's like in real, what's big data, how it works and stuff like this, and how the companies are creating their whole units about data and how they analyze the data. So first, I want to make sure that everyone understands the purpose and the need of this data platform. Then we'll go and do some focus about different areas within this data platform. The first focus that we'll have, it's about bringing the data to this data platform. Then transforming the data and consuming the data. And I will finish with some example of architectures. So I'll show you the one from DBS, but at the same time, I have done some research. So I saw one about Viber. It's a competitor of WhatsApp. And another one from Uber, competitor of Grab. So the first fact that we all need to remember is that data is everywhere. When you are within a company, you have so many applications. You have your marketing website, you have a CRM to handle all your customers, you have the HR app, usually like the ERP, where you know, okay, these are the people that we have within our company, this when they joined, this when they left. So if you want to contact someone who left, you still have this data. You have all the information within this HR app. You have a first product, you have the social networks where you post information and you want to retrieve the data, any external app, another mobile app, another product. You have data everywhere. And this data, when you think about it, can become really valuable. Because if you know how to process it, if you know how to use it, if you know how to transform it, you'll be able to find the right information for the right moment to take the right decision. And that's the most important things for companies. When they want to take decisions, when they want to innovate, when they want to invest, lots of companies do that thanks to guts. Usually you have a visionary, you have a guy who knows, who has some idea. He says, oh, in 10 years, I want to be there. And he has a gut, and sometimes he's right, sometimes he's wrong. And to avoid being wrong, what you can do and what the companies are trying to do is to rely on the right information to take the right decision. So this visionary says, okay, let's now this time find a solution to gather the data correctly and to make sure that we can transform this data, this raw data, into information that we'll be able to rely on. For that, you'll start to have few objectives and few challenges. So you start to think about it like, okay, we need to make sure that anyone in our company can have access to the data from any of these apps. So imagine, for example, in DBS, they have more than 500 applications. And they want to make sure that this data from this 500 application is accessible by anyone. So when I was discussing with the other colleagues in DBS, they told me that before, after they saw this transformation and creation of the data platform, like 5 or 6 years ago, to have access to one set of data to create a data use case, it was taking for them months. We are not speaking about weeks, but 2 months. So they want to make sure that you have the ability to quickly access to the data. And what Adrien was saying, this will be important when a business wants to make sure that you have the right time to market for your use case. Give you something really concrete. The COVID situation. With the COVID situation, you need to take quick decisions. And for that, you need to have the access to the data to take these quick decisions. If you see that some people are taking back their money, or if you see that some people are doing some actions, you need to be able to gather this data. And so apart from this access, the data needs to be discoverable. So you need to know what data do we have. In a big corporation, if you work for, like let's say in DBS, you work for Pay Now, you may not, and you want to speak about the people that works within DBS, you don't know what HR has. You may imagine, but you don't know. So you need to be able to discover what the other units have. And you need to have one single source of truth. You don't want to connect to each one of the application each time. You want to go to one place and find this data to this single source of truth. And then to do the processing and put in place AI and ML, which is something that will come, you need to have the stable and scalable infrastructure to process the data and the right tools to do AI and ML. So now that we have this objective and we understand what will be the purpose of this platform, we can start to think about solutioning in a way. So what will we need? We need authentication, authorization mechanism. We need discovery mechanism, some security. The single source of truth, we'll call it, and this is a term that is usually used within the market. We call it the data lake. So it's a lake, it's a place. You can imagine like really like a place. Instead of fish in this lake, it will be data. And it will not be ordered. It will be tried to be more or less clean. Like we don't want to have dead fish in our lake. We only want to have clean data. And it will be the single source of truth. This is where we will take our water from. This is where we'll take our data from and our food from. Then you'll have the data warehouse, where you will make sure that you can create your product. This is what we'll call data mart. So when you have created some analysis and you know some predictive model, you can put that like, it's like a warehouse and you have product with boxes and you say, okay, in this box, I have this analysis and I can tap on when I want. In this box, I have this second analysis and I can reuse if I want. Need to have the tools for AI and ML. So maybe we'll try to see, maybe we'll use NLP, maybe we'll use some statistical models. So we need to have the person as well to do that. We need to make sure that we can consume easily this data because usually, and same, so I'll come back to Adrien, you need to conciliate the different person within a company. And lots of business people, and they are right to want that, they want dashboards. They want information. They want in a quick glance being able to take decision. So we want to consume this data and to make it beautiful and pleasant to read. So being able to consume that. So, and the BI tools. So, speaking of consumption, you have the BI tools, you have some APIs, etc., etc., etc. So the idea now is that we will try to become data-driven. And that's the trend for several companies. For example, Grab is doing that. I went to one of the talks. So in May, there were like this Data plus AI summit. I tried, believe me, for the past 3 days, I was looking for this talk again and again because they were showing a video of their whole data platform and how they developed stuff. I wanted to show it to you, but I was not able to find it. But when you saw it, you say, oh, that's really the thing. They have a place where they have access to the data. They write some transformations. And at the end, they can create dashboards and analytics on this data. So let's see how usually it's structured. And I want you to share with you some concepts that I have learned and explain you what it is. Like this, if at some point you speak about someone or you want to try to maybe dig in a little bit more, you will understand these different concepts. So we have the vision of the data platform. We'll create an integrated self-service data platform based on several technologies. And anyone, it might be engineers, data engineers, analysts, scientists, a business guy, software engineers, web developers, anyone can go, have access to the data, discover the data, and if they want, they can work on some use cases to create a product about the data. Really important. There is a real distinction between application and platform. And for that, I would like to use an analogy. The restaurant is like an application. When you go to the restaurant, you have a passive attitude. You get the menu, you choose what you want, and then you ask the waiter, and the waiter will go to the chef, and the chef will cook it for you. So at the end of the day, you'll just ask for something, and then you receive what you asked. The difference with the platform is that you will not need, the person who will work on the platform will not be passive. He will need to be active. The data platform will gather all the ingredients, will make sure that it will put the right abstraction to the right place, to make sure that the users of this platform will not get confused and will not get lost. But at the end of the day, the users of the platform will come to this cooking studio where there will be all the ingredients that are working together, and they'll be able to create their use case using data. And that is why usually we call it a platform, because when they will arrive here, they will see all the tools. So you will have some tools about AI, you will have some tools about ML, you will have some tools about bringing the data, you will have so many tools, and they will use it to create their use cases. Because I don't know if you heard about it, but a data scientist, when you see interviews and so on, usually they spend 80% of their time not doing AI and ML. They spend 80% of their time finding the right data. Doing the statistics, doing the thing, it's not, if you ask them, it's the most interesting part, but it's not where they spend the most of the time. And that is why you need to create the platform. So the data platform will need to be like an end-to-end solution, providing several capabilities. You need to have governance. So we'll speak about this. This is governance. It's one of the most important things when we speak about data platform. Ingestion, compute, security, visualization. So having a place where we'll call it data lake, warehouse, to make sure that we have a scalable infrastructure. So here usually you have lots of garbage in, garbage out. Okay. Yes. All the data built by different people and different vendors over the years. Yeah, that's the most difficult part, to make it clean and to make sure that we can use. So the scalable infrastructure. So that's a question that will arrive usually when you try to build the data platform. Do you want it to be on cloud? Do you be on premise? You're on premise. You have compliance issue. Need to make sure that the data stays in the country. the cloud provider may not be in the country. For example, in Indonesia, we had this issue. You have this issue. You don't have all the cloud provider available there. So we need to try to think maybe you will do something hybrid with several cloud providers if you want to do. If you keep it on-premise with your own server, it might be complicated, stuff like this. So let's see one by one together some of the concepts. So first things first, the governance. We'll come back to this one later in more details. So the whole flow. So first things first, the governance. When you bring the data to the lake, when you transform the data, and exactly what Tech Ladies Singapore is saying, you need to make sure that you don't have, I don't know who is Tech Ladies, but nice to meet you. You need to make sure that you don't have this garbage. And the best way to do that is by having some set of rules that will be governed. So when you have the data, you need to make sure that to know who is the owner of this data, where the data is coming from. So from which application, from which source system, we say. The lineage, so the data has been taken from a source system, from an application, how it can, so after you have brought it, how you have transformed it, what are the type of action you have done, to have an end-to-end picture. What's the availability of the data? If we bring the data into a batch mode, so into a scheduled manner, when this data will be available? Will it be available every day at 8 AM? It will be available in real time? How this data will be available? And all of that needs to be governed and needs to be precise in one place. And to do that, we'll use what we call metadata. You need to see the governance portal or the place where you'll do the governance, like, I like to use this analogy, like a clothes shopping website. When you want to buy some clothes, you'll go to the shopping website and you will see the information about the t-shirt, the size, the color, where it has been built, who has like made in what. You'll see all the meta information. And in fact, for the data, you have exactly the same thing. Like what's the schema of the table? Who has created it? And if you make sure that everything is properly cached and written in the governance portal, it will be easy to discover it. And we will be able to tackle this challenge about discovery. Okay, so now we agreed we will have a governance portal. We will have everything written there, and whatever we bring, whatever we transform, it will be captured correctly. Now, of course, we have several ways to capture it, depending on the companies. Some companies are able to capture it automatically. Some others will ask to do it manually. So, for example, in DBS, right now, some of them is, many of the things that is captured is manual, but you are trying to make it automatic more and more. But it's really difficult. But at least we have put the right sign off to make sure that anything that is going to production is properly governed. The next challenge and the next concepts, which is about bringing the data to the platform, to the lake. So bringing our fish. Eugene will be happy, he'll be able to do his fish soup. So to bring this data, we'll do what we call ingestion. And it will be the first type of data pipeline that we will need to build. And the ingestion framework, it will be a framework because we'll create a set of tools. We'll try to tackle a few challenges. So when you have different applications, you will have different ways to store the data. So if we take, for example, McDonald's, McDonald's, they have the terminal, you know, when you go to the shop. These terminals have lots of data, lots of really useful data. How the users is clicking, how what's this order, what's the most asked when the promotion is working, stuff like this. And so what will be the format inside this terminal is not necessarily the same format that you will have in a web-based application. So the ingestion framework will need to be careful and will need to make sure that it can handle different type of inputs. So database, delimiter file, so for example, CSV, comma separated value file, JSON, so mainframe. So mainframe is like for example, the terminal where you withdraw money, the ATMs. This is the kind of a mainframe system. So everything is binary. And you'll need to make sure that you have the ability to convert these binaries into readable format, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Then the data flow. When you bring the data, yeah, it's good. We are within the theme. It comes from the lake, even though the salmon are not growing there. Okay, so the data flow, it needs to be either batch or real time. Sometimes you need to have the data coming real time. So at the end of the day, you will start to think about solutioning. Maybe you'll use Kafka, maybe you'll use all other queue system. But at some point, you need to make it, you need to do a choice, but the ingestion framework will need to handle both of this data flow. And then the cleaning. We don't want to have the garbage. And we want to make sure that whatever data we bring in is cleaned. And to do that, we'll do some automatic checks. For example, we'll check the schema. If we say that the table has 10 columns, and this is what we write in our governance portal, the table that arrives needs to have 10 columns. So we need to make sure, and if we say that we don't want any null value in the primary key, we need to make sure that we don't have the null value. So all this needs to be handled by this ingestion framework. And so we'll have, when we finish to create our frameworks that will enable us to create this data pipeline, we'll be able to create our first type of data pipeline. So from the source systems, we'll write our data pipeline. So I will not go into the details about how to write, how to, what's the technique, what's the architecture, what the technology that are used and so on. We can see that at the end. My idea is really to keep it like layman and make sure that we understand the concepts. But we need to write a data pipeline that will take the data from the source to the platform. So there is a nice question. Do we need a pipeline for every single app? Okay, you need the pipeline to bring any single information. So if, for example, you have with 10 tables, as you will make it governed, you will have a pipeline per table, for example. And this pipeline will make sure that each time that you bring one of this table, you explicit using the metadata what's the content inside this table without going into details like the value, but you'll explain the structure. You'll say when this table will need to be available. So you'll create the data pipeline you will create as many data pipeline as you need to bring the data. And so usually the people will do it so in a metadata-driven way, and they will start to code, create the pipeline, create the pipeline. Oh, 5 minutes left. Okay, that's a nice surprise already. Okay, I told you that I usually overestimate. So I'll go a little bit faster, and if I don't have the time to finish, it's okay. At least you'll have the main idea. I will go a little bit faster. So when you have finished to develop, you will have in your data platform, inside your lake, the data with the metadata. So that's why I have this small bubble. So each time that you bring the data, you will have the metadata here. Now that you have the data, it's time to process. So we'll speak about the compute framework. And usually you have two types of pipeline here when you want to process. You'll have ETL, and you'll have usually AI and ML. So ETL is extract, transform, load. Basically, what you will do is you'll take the data from the different set of data, and this data comes from different applications. So maybe this one comes from HR, this one comes from one of our products, and this one comes from another product. You try to transform it, and then you will save it into the warehouse. So now it will be a product that might be used for a dashboard, that might be used for further analysis. It will be a product. And that's why it's inside the warehouse, because it will be well organized. And this is what we'll call usually the ETLs. We'll extract the data from the lake, we'll transform it, and we will load it into our warehouse. Same, you code, and you have lots of good products that will be useful for consumption. Isn't ELT, ETL, ELT? It depends on, usually we call it ETL, but of course you can be like, you can have some nuance, you can call it ELTL if you want. Extract, load, transform, load. So, but usually it's mostly ETL, we call it. So then AI ML. So here the idea, so the advantage for the data scientist in this configuration is that the data is more or less clean. So they'll be able to focus a little bit more on the statistical model. So they will take as an input either data from the lake, either data from the warehouse, and they will add some statistical model. It can be predictive, it can be some NLP. For example, if we speak about data coming from a bot, let's say you have an app which is a chatbot and you want to do some NLP, you'll be able to do it from here. You can, lots of models that you can add here to do AI and ML. So there is one nice use case in DBS about that is about the cash replenishment in the ATM. I don't know if it happens to you before, but it happens to me once in when I went to, I think it was in one of the places for when I went to travel. I think it was in Bali. I went to a place, I needed money. I didn't have any more money. I went to the ATM and no cash anymore. And this is something like, it's really frustrating. And this is a typical use case that you can use, where you can use the data platform for. And in DBS, they have a whole use case about that. And that is why in Singapore, it's really rare to be out of cash in the ATM, because they have a whole use case about that. And they always make sure that the ATMs are replenished. So now the data, this is the data is in our platform. So we have the lake and we have some models and some aggregate data. Also, we have the governance that is governing everything. So all this metadata that you have in our table is inside our governance portal. And the last part is to consume the data. So you will use visualization tool. So you have lots of visualization tools in the market. For example, Tableau, Power BI, stuff like this that you will incorporate, and you will use JDBC or DBC connection. I don't go into details, technicalities, but you'll be able to connect to your platform, so to the warehouse or the lake, to access to the data and show the nice dashboards. And you may create also APIs. If, for example, in DBS, you have some regulatory that needs to access to the data. So you'll use one API and you will open it for external, that like this, they will be able to see the data. This is about the consumption. Okay, I think time's is up, so I'll finish. So now if we see at the end our platform in a simplified manner with the concept that we have learned together, we will have the governance that it's everywhere across. We'll have our lake and warehouse. We have an access layer. And through this access layer, depending on what we want to access, we'll have the ingestion that will enable us to create this data pipeline, the compute, we'll have AI/ML, have the BI tools, and we'll have other API to access. AWS, So they have all the chat and messages in Viber. They have a first data pipeline. They use events to be in real time. Then they process it. So it's like here they do the ingestion, then they process it and make sure it's in the storage. You have the warehouse. Here you have the reporting tools. So the dashboards, it's taken from the warehouse. Some of the ETL's jobs that are coming and putting inside the warehouse then. So it's another type of architecture, but the concept still the same, or always the same. Uber, so same as well. Take the data, do the ingestion, ETLs, and so on.